Hey, it's Jason from Bohemiabees, and we are out in the apiary today. It's a warm day on the eastern shore of Maryland. Spring is finally here, and we are going along and checking our colonies, deciding on what we need to do next with them. Some are at different points in their regrowth, we'll call it. So you need to make sure that you look at each colony differently, do that inspection to ensure that you understand what's going on inside the colony, and then make a decision on what you want to do. And we'll talk about that in a few. So let's get into the hive and take a look at see what's going on. Okay, so we've got a single deep that we're managing here. We manage single deeps here on the eastern shore of Maryland because it's just easier for us to manage through the brood nest through the various seasons. And we've done another video, and I'll put a link in the description on why we prefer the single brood management. We do have a couple double deeps in our apiary just for testing purposes and such, but I do really like the single 10 frame deeps, or sometimes the double 5 frame nukes going over the winter. So in this particular one, this is a single deep, and this is the one that we showed the video on where we put the Hive Alive pollen patties and of course the fondant that was still in there. So in this colony, I'm just peeking in the top and I can see a solid amount of bees. Every bee is working every corner of this colony. That can be a little dangerous in that you'd hope that they haven't moved to that point to where they want to swarm yet. They probably have several layers of brood in here, and we're going to take a look at that. But that pollen patty we put in about 2 weeks ago is completely gone. You'll see that it's gone, and there's a very little amount of that fondant patty in there as well. When we inspect our colonies out of winter, the things we look for naturally, we look at the front of the hive to see where they're coming and going. Right here at that top entrance, you can see there's a bee down here in the bottom with pollen on her legs. That's a good sign. She's down here in the bottom. We have our entrance. It's stored in the about dusk, or not dusk. It's a little bit lighter than dusk, about half hour before sundown. So the bees are a little calmer right now. They're just all coming back in. Probably not the most ideal time to inspect the colony. There's a lot of volume of bees, but it gives me a sense as to what I'm working with. I'm going to take the back of that hive and lift it up, and there's still some weight to that hive, which means they're either bringing in new nectar or they have stores left over from the winter. So naturally, let's take a look at what we got. We're going to smoke them a little bit just to kind of clear them off the frames so we can really assess where they're at. Not too much, just a little bit. You can see they're starting to beard on the inside of that inner cover right there. They're going to start to draw comb out in this shallow. It would be like a shallow, our shim that we have, our winter shim that we have on. So we're going to remove that. We don't want them to start build comb in there. That's a bigger cavity. It does not, respect, we call it respecting the bee space. So let's take and get these bees. Quick little tap off there. Get them off there. And they're going to be a little irritated because I did that. So I'm going to put a little smoke. All right, set that inner cover to the side. If you want to know what that inner cover looks like, or what that purpose of that screen inner cover is, we have a video about that as well. We like those screen inner covers. I can assess the bees, you can see, before even getting inside the hive, and I definitely got to get a new smoker. Let's go ahead and pull that shim off. It's been glued down. Okay, here's my fondant patty, or the remnants thereof. Okay, we don't need to put that back in. We can completely remove that now. Now that it's spring has arrived and there's pollen, the maples are producing pollen around here. We have some willow pollen, I think, that I've seen coming in. Additional other, various crocus is out, and the daffodils are also blooming in my area. So I'm assessing the hive, looking at it from frame to frame. There are 10 frames in here. Every frame is being worked on both sides. That tells me there's a lot of bees in here. So we got to be very careful that we don't squish any bees. It's got a lot of that propolis, winter propolis envelope. We talk a lot about the winter propolis envelope and inspecting your bees. When I teach beekeeping to newer beekeepers, they're so eager to get into their hives right after winter, and there's always that ebb and flow of hot, cold, hot, cold. We have a cold sun, a few days, and then you have a hot few days when they break cluster. You don't want to break the propolis envelope. The propolis envelope is what the bees have created to seal their hive into sort of that chamber. where they nest through the winter. So when you go in and start ripping frames out, you're breaking that propolis envelope, and that's really what they needed to survive through the winter. As you inspect them through the spring, there's resources out there for them to seal that propolis envelope back up. They can go and get natural botanicals and various other things that create the propolis and reseal it back up. But for the purposes of wanting to get in there too soon, it's not a good thing to just start ripping apart that propolis envelope. But for today's purpose, we definitely want to pull out a few frames to see what we have. That first frame is always the hardest after winter because there's so many. Okay, so when I look at this frame, it's full of honey on that side, or at least has some original honey, and yep, I got some honey on there. Some honey left over from the we set that frame down. I could use a frame rest. Cleaning up as I go. When I inspect the hive from the back or the side, you pull your frame away from the other frame so you don't roll any bees. You pull that frame straight out, and then you can observe what you're looking at, holding it and pinching it by the ends. And if it's foundational frame, you can actually flip it right up. If it's drawn comb, natural drawn comb, you don't want to do that. That's a heavy frame, lots of resources in that frame. Lots of resources. It's starting to get dark, so the girls are getting a little sassy. We're trying to get this done quick. They're still a little defensive. There's not a lot of nectar out yet for them to really bulk up their hives. This is probably feed syrup that we did some open feeding on, and various other places that they're finding that light nectar source. I'm looking just for cap brood and larvae in all stages. I do not need to find the queen. So I'm kind of moving these frames over. I'm 4 frames in. Let's take a look at this frame to see if the nest is expanded this large yet. I see cap brood, larvae in all stages, eggs along here. I don't see my queen. I see some drones in here actually. That's great. But that also tells me that I need to be careful and look for queen cells for swarming purposes. That's a good looking frame. That means there's brood on that frame. Let's take a look at these next few frames. Making sure they're not developing any type of a queen cell for me. Okay, so we got a solid frame of brood here. Again, I see eggs and larvae in all stages. I see capped brood. I see drone brood in the middle and some of those drone style cells. Look at that, solid frame. This is all laid out. This is all capped brood here. You have all this larvae in all stages over here, some pollen along the edges. Very nicely done. Off the frames. I'm going to take a look at these next 2 frames, making sure I don't see any queen cells, making sure I still see brood. Solid frame of brood, some pollen. This is a wonderful looking overwintered colony. Haven't spotted my queen yet, but that is okay. I know she's in here. Look at that beautiful frame coming out of winter. Beautiful. And straight in so you don't roll or have a chance to roll your queen. They're definitely sassy here this evening. So the last frame I'm probably going to pull out because I'm seeing what I want to see. Yep, look at that. Make sure I'm not building a swarm cell down there. Beautiful. Golden. Beautiful. All right. Let's put these girls back together. As gentle as possible. Tightening up my frames. And then I'm going to take and put this black frame on the inside rather than the outside, because this frame right here was full of honey. Full of honey. And they are getting really antsy this evening, as I'm tearing into their hive as it's getting dark. Bees do not like to fly at night. So the longer you spend, and I'm going to actually just push them back. We got to put this back in. All right. A little tight. Lots of bees. Excuse me. That's gonna be a pain to get out, but I got them in. Tighten my frames up as if they're not already tight enough. Now, you're asking, you got this solid hive, what do we do next? What do we do with it? Okay, so we've inspected the hive. It looks great. Lots of frames of brood, lots of resources coming out of winter. It's a decent sized colony, but we need to ensure that we give them the proper space so they can grow into. These bees are going to swarm if we don't get more space on them. We've got to put but we have to decide, do we want to make honey or do we want to make bees? What I mean by that is, in a single brood management strategy, you could put a box on this and they could build honey in that top as the early flow starts to come in. However, we want to make bees. This is a great colony. It's overwintered, good strong hive, good genetics. The best thing to do is add another deep, which is what I have right here. So we'll put our deep on. And we've given them 10 frames of drawn comb, okay? Drawn comb will allow that queen and the other bees to move up into this top box and start to build out 10 more frames of bees. So that's really the decision you have to make at this time of the year. I know it's maybe nerve-wracking for a newer beekeeper, but for us, we always like to make bees early, and then we work on getting the honey a little bit later. So that's really my message for you today. Hopefully you learned something, or at least took something away, or at least watched what we do here at the Bohemia Apiary. We don't like to give you the recipe for how to do everything or the prescription on how to do everything. We like to tell you how we do it, and then let you decide. This double management chamber early in the spring allows the bees to grow really strong, allows us to potentially split one or more nukes out of this top box or out of this entire colony for late spring or mid-spring nukes. It's just a way to make more bees, and that's what we want to do. So I appreciate you watching the video, appreciate you subscribing. We've grown the channel pretty fast in the last several months. Continue to slam that subscribe button at the bottom. Continue to follow along, share with your friends, comment below if you have a different strategy coming out of spring, what you do. I know there's things that people do with flipping boxes and various things like that. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you manage your hives. But remember, here at Bohemia Apiary, we love to do things, and we love the springtime. We love trying different new things. So remember to subscribe, and remember that beekeeping here at Bohemia Apiary is definitely more than a hobby. It's an obsession. Thanks for watching.